So, you've come to be scared, have you? Very well. Come with me. We will journey, you and I, but not to the spine-chilling churchyard or the foggy, frightening forest, no. We will travel south, to the land of the pharaohs, where the desert disorientates and the mirage maddens. Stay close, because you wouldn't want to get lost as we search for the tomb of the mummy.
What are you doing?
Oh, you've spoiled it now. Hi, my name's Adam and I'm a geophysicist, and in this talk I'm going to be telling you about how we use geophysics to explore for mysteries in the ground beneath your feet. In this talk, that ground is sand, and the mystery is the lost entrance to an ancient Egyptian tomb. And the bit of geophysical kit that we're using is these little boxes of tricks. It's a radar system, and so the name of this talk is Tomb Radar. Hey, hey! Spooky stories and sandy secrets. And I'm going to go big screen, and I'll tell you a thing or two about geophysics. First off, what is geophysics? Well, to some extent, the clue is in the name. You've got geo, which relates to Earth, and you've got physics, which relates to physics. And so what you're looking at is the physics of the Earth. Geophysicists use physical laws and ideas to say something about the structure of the ground. Now, some geophysicists look at entire planetary structure. They could tell you what the ground is made of all the way down from the Earth's surface, through the middle, and back out again. But I tend to work with kind of more shallow subsurfaces, so looking in the soil and in the sand, immediately beneath your feet. This, for example, is a picture of a meerkat burrow that we made using geophysical methods in South Africa, and maybe that's a talk for the Global Science Show in its own right. But also within that field is archaeological imaging, and so when you work with archaeologists, it quite often brings you into contact with skeletons and dead people graves, and here maybe even mummies, because we're looking for this buried tomb beneath the sands of Egypt. So I'll introduce the tomb now. So the particular tomb that we are exploring is on the outskirts of the Egyptian city of Luxor, and specifically it's at the site of South Asasif. Now, South Asasif is tomb central. There are tombs and burials all over the place. You can see 3 of them here mapped out in red, blue and green, and it's the red one that we're talking about. It's owned by a guy called Karakhamun, and you can see that it's quite nicely mapped out, but we don't know where the entrance is. Now, before I show you around Karakhamun's tomb, I should do the polite thing and introduce you to the man himself. Here he is. This is his likeness carved onto the rock wall of his tomb. Can you see any family resemblance at all? He lived around 600 BC, so 2,600 years ago, and he was quite the big deal in his day. He was a high priest, which means that when he finally died, he was given quite a high status tomb. His tomb is quite large. But for all that high status, his tomb is not in the best state of repair today. If we look at this area, this originally had a roof on it, not anymore. The roof has collapsed and it's destroyed quite a lot of the structure of the tomb. But what does remain dotted around the place are hieroglyphics on some walls and on some bottoms of pillars. And if you didn't know that you were in a tomb, this would give you the answer, because these are all extracts from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is a set of prayers and kind of rituals for funeral burial practice. So you are quite definitely in a tomb. Now, what did Egyptians put in their tombs? They put sarcophaguses and mummies, and if you want to find where that originally was, you carry on to the back of the tomb, you head down these stairs, you come around the corner, and eventually you'll find this vertical shaft, and that will take you 9 meters down, and you will be in the final burial chamber of Karakhamun, where his mummy and his sarcophagus was laid. And you can lie there pretending that you're a mummy, and this is the view that you'll get above you. This is the sky goddess Nut, and she's there on the ceiling looking down, protecting Karakhamun for all eternity. Now, other bits of the tomb are in a much worse state of repair. If we look at this area was originally open air. So if you were a member of the Egyptian public, you could come along and you could take a look at what all of the monks and priests were doing inside the tomb. You could come and pay your respects to Karakhamun. But because it was open air, it has now been filled up with desert sand. So that's been washed in there over the course of the centuries, and now it is the task of the excavation teams to remove all that sand. Question is, does the entrance, the lost entrance to the tomb of Karakhamun, is it under the sand there? Let's get geophysical. So our best guess for where the lost entrance is located is marked by these red circles here. Now, of course, we've got the archaeologists on site. We could just say to them, look, you just keep on digging. You'll get there in the end. I'm going over there for a coffee. But, you know, that's a lot of sand to move, and you've got to feel sorry for them. It gets up to 50 degrees C in the middle of summer in Egypt, so I would not want to be shifting all that sand around. And this is the beauty of geophysics, because it lets you see into the ground without actually having to dig it up. And one of the methods that we've got, as I showed you earlier, is radar. Now, with radar, you can imagine it's like an X-ray for the ground. My little yellow boxes are actually antennas. This is a transmitter and this is a receiver. The transmitter fires off little pulses of energy into the ground, and if there's any structures there, that energy is returned back to the surface and the receiver can pick it up. And when we stick those data into the computer, we can build up an image of what the subsurface looks like. Let me put it another way. Here we've got the ground surface and it's got some sort of sloping layer there. I come along with my radar antennas connected to the computer and I'm going to build up an image of what the ground looks like. So I fire off some energy, my computer records a little blip, and then I move the antennas along the surface, firing off energy as I go. My computer is always recording these little blips, and so when I get back from a hard day's surveying, I take a look at the computer and I can say, oh, there's this sloping layer. That's what I think the subsurface contains. So let's apply this to finding the lost tomb entrance. So let's take a look at what secrets the radar revealed. The black box that I've got there is the survey area in front of the Karakhamun tomb, and I'm going to show you data from two lines. This one here in red, this one here in purple. Let's do the red one first. Now, I have to say that there's not a lot to see in this particular radar image. If you're scratching your head thinking, I can't see any sign of any tombs or any hidden entrances, then you'd be right. There really isn't much to report in this particular line. However, when we look at the purple one, there's a very different story. Can you see that there is this layer that seems to form up this V shape? I'll highlight it for you here. That's really interesting to me because all of these layers have to be sand layers within the sand of the desert. But sand always wants to form horizontal layers. You've got to have a reason why all of a sudden the sand would form up in these V-shaped layers. So is this starting to point towards something to do with the tomb? Let's have a think about it in the next slide. So what I'm showing here is a zoom in of the survey area in front of the Karakhamun tomb. You can see I've still got my red line and my purple line, but now I've got this colour scaled background as well. And what the colours represent is the depth to the base of the V. And it's really interesting because as you move further away from the Karakhamun tomb, you can see that the V starts to form up. It starts maybe just shallow, it's 30 centimetres deep, but then as you move further away it goes to 1 metre deep, and then it comes back up again. And that's really interesting because, as I said, sand wants to be horizontal. There must be something happening in the ground to make that V-shaped layer form. And I came up with a couple of ideas. There's our sort of starting point. We've just got rock with maybe a tomb in it, and we've got a horizontal sand layer. That's natural, that's normal. But then woe of woes, let's say that the tomb collapses. We know that these tombs collapse. As the rock moves, then all of the sediment layers, all of the sand layers have to move as well. And equally, let's say that the people building the tomb built some sort of hollow into the rock, then gradually all the sand is going to fall into there, it's all going to settle out, and you will have this V shape form up. And I've got a little experiment that I want to show you. Here's my desert in a bottle. It's half a plastic bottle with some sand and a layer up here. And I'm going to simulate a collapse. I'm going to start letting some sand out of this, and we'll see what happens. So here goes. I will slowly unleash the sands of time. There's some sand coming out. Now then, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to turn it around. There was some sand that came out, but can you see in there that we now have this V-shaped layer that is formed up? There is some sand still around the side of the bottle, but we've got this V shape in the cross section that the radar would see. So as we move material from underneath these sand layers, we can start to build up this V shape. And this was really interesting. I'll just put this to one side. What I suggested to the archaeologists was that what they'd likely have was a little bit of the continuation of the Karakhamun tomb before there would be a collapse or there'd be some sort of hollow, because otherwise you simply wouldn't get this V-shaped sand layer. And so that was where they decided to dig. And let's see what they found. Now, I thought that that would really be the end of my involvement in it, that I would just tell the archaeologist a recommendation and then next year they would go and do some digging and tell me whether I was right or I was wrong. But we actually got to see whether I was right or not while I was out there, and this was really cool because on the last day of my trip and on the last day of their excavation, this is what the excavation team found. What you're looking at here is the front wall of the Karakhamun tomb, and you can see that just there by this guy who's crouching down, that is the top of the door. It's mostly buried in sediment, but there's a top of the door, meaning that there's another room beyond the Karakhamun tomb. And so the excavation teams really focused their digging, they did lots and lots of digging, and eventually we were able to go in it. We were the first people in there for around 2,600 years, and most of this room was just full of sediment, but you were able to kind of sneak in there, and it was really awesome because on the walls there's kind of these paintings of everyday life in Egypt. Here you've got some farmers who are growing grapes, and here you've got some people doing what you do with grapes. You know, they were very cultured people, the Egyptians, and they're making wine. And it was absolutely fantastic because as much as the hieroglyphics were really cool, these were paintings. This is almost like a photograph of daily life in ancient Egypt, and it was absolutely astounding. But we've still got an unsolved mystery, and that's what is this V-shaped layer about? What causes these sand layers to start horizontal and end up V-shaped? What's the answer? Well, next year the archaeologists went back and they excavated where I suggested that they should, and this is what they found. This is the lost entrance to the Karakhamun tomb. You can see that it's a staircase that's heading down from ground level, going all the way down to the floor level of the tomb, and this was awesome. What it suggests is that the ancient Egyptian tomb builders carved out a staircase. We've got this hollow that the sand layers are progressively falling into, and they were able to update the map of the Karakhamun tomb. So you can see there, highlighted in the circle, is this small room that we were able to go into, and now they've found the stairs. So this was a real win one for the geophysics. I'm really, really proud to have got involved with this particular project. It was really awesome. So thanks very much for watching, and I will wish you a happy Halloween and leave you with just 3 thoughts. Number 1, if you want more updates, then check out the South Asasif Conservation Project online. All the latest updates from their excavations will be there. Number 2, a quick word of thanks to the Mummy of Karakhamun for not kind of visiting me with any kind of curse for violating the sanctity of his tomb or anything like that. And number 3, a quick question to you. If you were a geophysicist, what would you want to look for underground? You can let me know at either of these Twitter accounts, and I will hopefully speak to you soon. You take it easy, and yeah, happy Halloween.